Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Game House. If you stay in tune with the coverage that we have going on here with the Overwatch League, you'll notice that an article July 4th by one of the fine writers on the site, Bradley Long, he reported that the Vancouver Titans signed a player from one of the contender squads, and it just so happens that I have a connection to that contender squad through some people that I know through some people that I know through some people that I know from them. And so right now I have with me two guys from GRUNTo Esports. I have written some stuff about them in the past on my own. I have a couple people that I know, and I thought it would make a really interesting story to hear their side of what it's like to cultivate that talent, to get that email, to get that phone call like, hey, we're going to take one of your players, and it is every player's dream to be in the Overwatch League. But what happens after they leave? What does the team do? What do the owners do? What does the coach do? How does the team react? And it really shows to me, and I think you're going to hear this in our interview, that it really shows me the passion and the strength and the foundation that these guys have built, that they are sending their players on and still performing at a high level. So I have with me today two of the guys from GRUNTo Esports. I have Spork and I have and Coded. Guys, go ahead and introduce yourselves a little bit. Go right ahead.
Hey, so this is Ken Spork McGaffey. I'm with GRUNTo Esports, and I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for reaching out.
This is Dusty Coded Robertson. I'm a co-founder and part owner of GRUNTo Esports, and it's a pleasure. Yeah.
Awesome, guys. So, sort of in a nutshell, in just a little bit, give me some background as to how this all went down for you. So you're playing your contender schedule, the team's working well, the coaches, everything's sort of coming together, and then you get this notification, email, phone call, or whatever. So what does that exactly what does that sound like?
Well, I think we were at 2-0 at the point that this kind of came up for us, and Wave, our general manager of the team, just kind of messaged me at one point. He's like, hey, so I just thought you should know that Tizi is trialing with the Vancouver Titans. And so my first thought is like, well, wow, okay, that's exciting. What does that look like? Like, what's going on? And there are a lot of things going through my head, and then Wave comes back. He's like, yeah, and that's not it. He's also trialing with about 6 other OWL teams. So we need to get together and talk about what this is going to look like.
Okay.
So at that point, it's like, all right. So I mean, there's a chance that he gets picked up. It's not for sure, but it seems like it's very likely considering how many people are interested in him. And so at that, we're like, okay, well, I think it's probably, let's not run around with chickens with our heads cut off just yet. We still have some time. And then at that point, we started looking into the scene and saying, hey, so who can we pick up? Because we're just as excited as Tizi is that he got that opportunity to try out. So, at the same time, that's no excuse for not being prepared. And that was our very first thought was, this is awesome, but we need a tank. And what's our next step? Like, what do we do? How do we plan? What are our courses of action should one of any of these 3 things happen?
Okay, so not only do you have a team to manage and to handle things day to day, but then you also have to cultivate the talent because you know that you're going to get these phone calls. So coded. When that phone call happens, and so is that like a combination of I'm really happy for the guy, but holy crap, we still have to play this. His next
absolutely, yeah.
Match, right?
Yeah, it's exciting. It's exciting for the org. It's sad for the team because they've built some great chemistry and synergy together. But it's good for the org because it means we're doing the right thing internally as far as the coaching staff and the players and managing it all together. And it's great for the player that gets to move up to Al. Um, but it's frustrating for the team because they build that synergy and that cohesion, and then we have to find somebody else to try and replace them and do it all over again.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, so from the org standpoint, now when you sign players, I'm sure that it's written into the contract, and you guys have told me this. There are specific rules and exceptions in the contender um, contract. So when you sign these players and they're going through the contract and they're trying to understand what they're dealing with, sort of walk me through what that actually sounds like.
Okay, yeah. So typically, the first thing to know is that as a person that is interested in competing in contenders, everybody, whether you're management on the org side or a player, everybody agrees to the rules that Blizzard puts out. And the most relevant thing from those rules in this instance is the fact that contracts must have a buyout clause that basically allows OWL teams to not only scout, but also trial and then sign any of your players at any time that they want. Right. So you may have a roster of 6 players, and OWL, the league proper, all those teams have the purview to basically pick up your players at any time. So like that could look like any number of things. It could be like a 2-week trial process. It could be a month-long trial process. It could be 2 days where they decide, hey, we're offering a contract to your player, and if they choose to sign it, then we have those 2 days notice.
Okay, so I guess the easiest way for people who aren't necessarily tuned into the Overwatch, the easiest way to understand this is if you're playing professional baseball and you're playing AAA or AA, and you're a foreign team of the Philadelphia Phillies or the New York Yankees, the high end club, the professional club, has the right to get you on the phone, to send you an email and go, we want that guy, we want this person, and we want him to show up at our place in 3 days. So is that a fair comparison?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things is that we are actually really excited for this kind of thing to happen, right? So those kind of phone calls, it's an initial kind of reaction of joy, honestly, because this is the goal of every player in Contenders League, is that your players and your management, that everybody gets pushed up to OWL, because the recognition, the salary, just everything about it is what any professional player in Overwatch wants for themselves.
Okay, but that doesn't change the fact that you guys still have to play contenders matches. You still have to keep on moving forward with what you have. So, as a short-term fix, because it could be something you have 1 day notice, you could have 1 month notice. So when this all comes down for you guys, what happens?
Well, if I'm going to be honest, what happens is an emergency players meeting, right? We get all the coaches and all the players and everybody together, and we're like, all right, so we have a very short timeline. Who do you know that's good, that would be willing to substitute in for us this week? And then that's basically what we did. It was like, hey, what about this guy? No. Or what about this guy? Oh, no, they're on roster lock. And then we just sat there and we brainstormed who could we pick up. And at the same time, it was productive for us because while we were going through who could substitute, we were also talking about who could be our next player, right? And we actually just announced today who our new main tank is going to be, and that was like a person that we talked about during this type of players meeting,
right?
And at that time, like, we knew going in that we actually had a match in 2 days, right? So the news came down on Monday, and then we have our match against the Gladiators on Wednesday. And like, okay, so we have less than a day, because, you know, this is like the afternoon of Monday or evening of Monday. And then we have all of Tuesday and then Wednesday morning to kind of figure out how we're going to approach this match. And what kind of tank we get also affects that, right? Because some main tanks are more focused on Winston, and some main tanks are, you know, really focused on the GOATS meta, and that's all going into our decision making. And really what we decided was we have to try to make a comp work that doesn't focus on our main tank. And if you know that the GOATS meta, if you know what the GOATS meta is, then that sounds ludicrous, right? Because Reinhardt is the absolute staple of running GOATS. And if you go look at our VOD from our match against Gladiators, it is really unorthodox, right? It's unlike anything you see in NA contenders. It's modeled after the EU team Clockwork Vendetta, but it was something that we really threw together. And honestly, I think it was so effective because it caught Gladiators off guard.
So that speaks, and that speaks directly to you guys as an org, and I think that's an important thing to note. Is that I mean, you can't shine over the fact that you guys are disciplined and focused, and that comes from your training in the military, and that's an important thing to highlight. Is that in order to have a career in the military like you have Spork, it's these are skills that you have to develop. You have to be able to plan, you have to be able to teach and train, but you also have to be able to think under pressure and to think in short time frames. And so that speaks directly to you guys and your ability to put together not only a solid roster, but to have a coach and a support staff that have a solid understanding of what this means for you guys. So sort of to talk about your staff a little bit. I mean, you mentioned that to me earlier before we started recording this, that you feel like that your strength as a squad, one of the people that has really done well for you, I mean, is your coach, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two people that I would say really make this happen, and the first one is Wave. Like, Wave does, honestly, I don't think he gets nearly as much credit as he should be getting, and he's the general manager, and he books all of our scrims, and he finds a lot of our talent. And in this instance, he managed to find a couple people, right? A couple people on the roster, but in this instance, I want to talk about By Zenith and Get Amazed and Ju Young, right? So By Zenith is the Montreal or the Toronto Defiant Academy, one of their ex-coaches that came to us, and honestly, and then Get Amazed is one of the off tank for the EU contenders champion team in the past, and then we have Ju Young, who is from Sky Foxes. And these guys, they don't miss a beat, right? So kind of like what you were talking about, they understand that you can't sit still and sit there and recoil from the news or from, you know, a bad event that might have happened. They're always looking forward. They're looking at the next thing. They're controlling emotions. They're controlling attitudes. They're making sure that we're being productive and that the communications are short and effective. And honestly, like, I'm always impressed when I sit in on the comms on these guys, and they're directing the energy. They're making sure that the practice is productive. And honestly, we couldn't do it without them. Like, this team is very heavily By Zenith and the coaching staff's team. And you know, I can't obviously sell short the players because they're the ones that are working hard every day to make this happen. But when it comes to the decision making, like, and just the leadership that they've shown, like, it really does impress me, and it really embodies a lot of the values that I think the military pushes onto its leaders.
Very nice. Coded. So when this news comes down, and you have 2 days to pull something together, I mean, for you, what's that like? I mean, you have the conversation, you get your list, you get with the coach, and then you have to put together a game plan, and that's so. I mean, if you're a good parallel with this, I mean, if you're a football coach, if you're the head coach of the Giants, and you hear 2 days before your important game on Monday night that your best running back or your best offensive lineman is got hurt doing something else or has a family emergency. 2 days you have to put together a new game plan, a new thought process. So for you, when you get the players together and you get everybody in, it just feels like to me that you all sit down and go, here's what we got, here's what we're going to do moving forward. If anybody has any thoughts, share them now, right? Or is that a different?
Well, I mean, yeah, you just have to have faith in the staff that you've put in place to know. I mean, being in the upper end of the org, I don't deal with a whole lot of the day-to-day stuff as far as the players and whatnot go. You know, that Spork could probably answer that better, but absolutely, it's you get the call and you say, hey, this guy is 99% going to be signed to this team, and we're like, okay, well, what do we do from here? Well, we've got a guy we're looking at, you know, and we got a guy we're trying out, so we got a sub possibility. But yeah, it's definitely a tedious couple of days to get things together and to hope it works out. And so far it's worked out very well, and that, you know, again, that speaks to the staff that we have in place, the coaching and the manager and everybody else involved. It's a great crew that we have in the Overwatch League here.
Yeah, and now with the changes in the rules when it comes to roll lock and everything else like that. I mean, you guys have a shifting rule set. What, every month, every couple of months? I mean, that to me would be extremely frustrating. I mean, for somebody like me, I spent 20 years as a fast pitch softball umpire, and if somebody in the middle of the season changed the rule 3 separate times, that would annoy the crap out of me, because I'm like, why are we changing rules in the middle of the freaking season? It throws everything off. The coaches get mad at me as an umpire because, like, it's a new rule. I'm sorry, it just came out last week. So when you're dealing with these rule updates, I mean, that just has to be, I mean, you just have to sit there and you gotta, like, I want to stab my eyes out right now. This it just sounds really frustrating to me, you know?
Oh yeah, you definitely have to roll with the punches. You know, there's some things that you can maintain a certain amount of control over, and then there's other things that you absolutely have no control over, and you just have to be able to understand that, you know, these kinds of things are going to happen, and as long as you prepare to be as prepared as possible, then things usually work out for the best.
Very nice. Yeah, it's wonderful to me to hear conversations like this that go counter to the narrative that many people have about gaming and esports, is that it's just a bunch of kids screaming at screens and they all hate each other and it's all toxic, when in reality you guys are extremely professional. You handle yourselves well under stress. You have the background of a non-gaming thought process that you bring to gaming that makes everything better. And this leads me to my next little point. So Spork, I mean, you're in the Army. I mean, you serve active duty, and you're an officer. So there's a difference between being an officer and being enlisted, obviously. What's the conversation like that you have with your superiors, that you might have with your captain or your major who've probably been serving for a very long time and have no idea what this whole gaming thing is all about? You know what I mean?
Yeah, so The interesting thing about that is I don't have the luxury of choosing not to bring it up, right? Because of how much time I do put into this.
Right.
It's actually a rule in the Army that if you are spending your time doing outside employment, then you need to report that to your chain of command because they need to approve it, right? So if I'm a full-time Army officer, that means that I'm representing the Army and its brand every day and every hour, basically. So if I'm doing something very unprofessional, I could list an entire slew of professions that the Army would deem unprofessional here, but that's probably not productive. But typically you don't think of esports manager as one of those unprofessional things. In fact, they don't, a lot of the times they don't even know what that is. So I go to work and I say, hey, so I need to fill out my memo for outside employment. And they're like, oh, really? What are you doing? I'm like, oh, well, I manage an esports team. And like, oh, what? I'm like, well, basically it's competitive video games. And they're like, well, I mean, that's a job. I'm like, well, if I put a lot of time into it and I see it as a job, and I want to, I want to have a career in this in the future. So I'm doing my due diligence and filling this out, like doing this memo. And they're like, all right, man, well, have fun. Good luck with that. Right? I'm like, okay, well, that's my, I'm upholding my end of the bargain.
Right. And then so when you have to do the basic day-to-day things for the org, I mean, you told me that you, before we got into this too deep, you're telling me how you bought a house and you're like, why don't we just use the house for the squad? It'll make life a whole bunch easier. And so you then have to handle some of the day-to-day things with your squads, right?
Yeah, so the funny thing about that was I've been looking around for a house for a little while, and I had a buddy that I had intended on creating a startup with. And that's already how I knew about the outside employment thing, because this has been something that's been going on for a little while now. And then some things fell through here and there, and then I end up with a house that's way too big for just me to live in. And then I started getting involved with GRUNTo as a player, actually, before I came on as a owner. And then it, like, the pieces just started falling into place where, I could actually put a team in here. Like, this house is big enough to have an actual gaming team. And that's something that I think a lot of athletes have as a dream when they're younger. They're like, man, I would love to go be a professional and play this and live in a team house, right? And that was just something I had. And so I got really passionate about it. And then through a series of events, like, I ended up starting to build an open division team, and then got put in touch with then Chicken Contendies, and they're like, hey, so why are you trying to put an open division team when I think an established tier 2 team would be much more, you would benefit as an established team far more than you would a brand new group of players, because they already have that trust with one another. I mean, there's a lot that you're asking of people when you ask them to move to a team house. They're getting on a plane, they're flying somewhere they've never been before, they don't have friends and family there, and having that trust already pre-established between players is pretty big. And then that's just kind of how it happened, so I just started driving to the airport and picking up these people I've never met before and inviting them to live in my house. And that's kind of like how that happened. Like, it was really spur of the moment. We went from building an open division team to negotiating with an existing team, and then they all just started moving in.
It's really interesting how lucky and fortunate people seem to be when they are prepared for stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't what I was preparing for, but I had definitely put a lot of time and effort into what I thought I was going to end up doing, and I ended up chasing and doing something that I had dreamt about for a long time instead. So, as far as I'm concerned, it's
very nice, very nice. I am very happy for you guys. You are definitely a credit to what gaming is, the core values of teamwork and preparation and training and discipline and focus. And I'm really grateful that you guys made time to talk with me today. As we shut this down, is there anything that you have coming up in the next couple weeks, couple months that you'd like to promote?
I think on my end, so I'm if you haven't figured it out by now, like I'm much more focused on the Overwatch side of things.
Right.
And for us, like we just picked up Umte, which was our new main tank, and I'd like to basically shout out to him for making the decision to come join the team. And we've got our matches coming up here, so I would just say wish us luck as we finish out the rest of the regular season. Our goal is to make it to the Gauntlet this year, which is in Seoul, and which means we have to be top 2 in our playoffs. And then if we could make it deep in the Gauntlet, like that would be a dream come true for the players and the org. But Coda, do we have anything going on GRUNTo's side?
As far as the overall org goes, we are partnered with the Military Gaming League. I believe they are putting on a Rainbow Six league in Los Angeles in September. I think we're organizing a team to put together to send out there. We just finished a League of Legends online tournament with them not too long ago, and we actually went out to Vegas for their annual PUBG tournament. We're also talking with some local gaming centers where we're based out of Ohio, and Tony, I believe, is partnered us with one or two lands out there that we're talking about putting together some local lands. Nothing set in stone on those yet, but once we do, we'll announce them on Twitter and on the website. But I think the Rainbow Six League in Los Angeles is something. I want to say middle to end of September, so I believe that's coming up.
Very nice. Yeah, in fact, I did an interview with the guys from the MGL, both Drake and Sham Shield are people that I've spoken with in the past, and I will for sure hit them up. Guys, thanks very much for talking to me. Hey, check out GRUNTo Esports on Twitter at GRUNTo Esports. Check out the site GruntoEsports.com. Thanks to Coded, thanks to Spork, thanks to everybody for tuning into this today. If you love what we do when it comes to Overwatch news here at the Game House, like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you soon.